and welcome. This is the first edition of Voices of the Valley, and we are going to interview locals, learn more about their story, and we have our very first guest today, Ted Kozlowski. I'm pumped.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm very happy to have you. And I want to learn everything from like your little tiny baby boy roots until all the way to now. So where did you grow up?
For the most part in Stillwater.
Okay.
My parents got divorced when I was 5, and we headed this way. We left Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo. Okay.
Yeah, one of the world's greatest, most underrated cities.
Is that right?
No, not at all. It's terrible.
Very gullible, apparently.
Yeah, no, it was not a fun place, but we were on our way out here, and my mom, I think she was dating somebody in San Francisco.
Okay.
And so we came through, and she stopped to stay with friends in Lakeland.
Okay.
That lived just north of the bungalow. And more or less fell in love with Stillwater. She
Who doesn't, right?
Right, yeah. She's a runner, and so she like ran into town and saw Stillwater for the first time, and then came back and grabbed me and my sister and was like, what do you think? Like, we got the U-Haul and drove back into town. She needed to get some beer or something. And,
as one does.
Right.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I went downtown Stillwater. I'll never forget, in Toledo, there were rivers, but you could light them on fire and walk across the garbage. Right?
Oh, that's not great.
It was, it was beautiful. It was like August or September when we were here, and went down to the river, and I'm like, Mom, can I swim in that river? And she's like, I don't know, like ask somebody. And
there's a chance.
I went up, and there's this older gentleman sitting in a bench, and I'm like, hey, excuse me, is it cool if I swim in that river? And he's like, he looked at me like I was from Mars. He's like, of course you can swim in that river. And I'm like, what? And so I was like, shirt off, jumped in the river.
And you're in. And we think St. Croix, it's so clean for a river, right?
It is. It's amazing. It's still amazing.
And how old were you then?
Probably 5, 6, somewhere around there.
Okay.
I mean, I was a little tyke, and that for me was it. Like, to be in nature. My mom always tells a story about how when we got here and got out of the U-Haul for the first time, I said, Mom, the air smells funny here. And she's like, that's because it's clean. So
smart lady.
That's kind of how it all started.
Okay. And so you went to grade school here.
I did. I went to Stonebridge.
Stonebridge.
Where we build bridges instead of walls.
Wow, that's really good. Cheers to them. And how many siblings?
I have my oldest is a half sister. Her name is Dylan. She lives in Sacramento. And then I have a stepsister, Dana, and a stepbrother, Spencer.
Okay. Where do you fall in the lineup? Are you in the middle?
I'm the youngest.
The baby.
Yes.
So am I. Cheers. High five.
Right.
Yeah, we like that. All right. So when you were at Stonebridge and you were living your best life, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I mean, Tony Hawk was, kind of my idol, right? I mean, at that point, I really didn't know. Science. Like, I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to work in a lab with my biological father. He was a veterinarian, and so
cool.
he stayed in Toledo. And so when I'd go back as a kid, I'd help him at the vet clinic, and so I'd do blood work and play with cultures and all that kind of fun stuff. And so that was really interesting for me, but I just suck at math. So
that's tricksy.
It was hard
then.
to keep that science thing going.
Balancing those two.
Right.
So were you like the mad scientist when you were there? You just experimented and
I was definitely the kid that would take all the cleaning products from underneath the sink and try and make them more flammable.
Volcanoes, explosions.
Yeah, volcanoes. But I mean, I like to light things on fire. I mean,
even now.
Less so now. Now we have fireworks, right? We try and keep it legit, but. We lived on 6th Street between Olive and Pine, and there's a great ravine right off Myrtle Street. And so my elementary school days were filled hanging out with kids down there, trying to, create crazy chemical compounds and light things on fire.
Okay, that's fair. But you never started like a little mini forest fire down there?
There were a couple close calls that got me a little spooked and put that to an end.
Okay. Now, is that the ravine with the path that goes through it?
No, this is just south of Myrtle Street and kind of west of 6th Street.
So more private ravine.
A much more private ravine. It was
so shenanigans.
Lots of shenanigans.
Okay. And how long did you live there all the way through high school?
No, that we moved from there to where my parents live on Lily Lake now.
Okay.
So when we lived there, it was just my mom and I. My sister for a little bit. She's 10 years older. So when I was 8 or 7, she went to college in Madison.
Okay.
And so we were there through middle school, and my mom and I moved to Croywood for a spell, and that was a lot of fun.
Okay. That's more neighborhoody, right? Like, so.
It was. I mean, I was, at first, I was dead set against it. I'm like, this is terrible, because I loved being able just to walk downtown and skateboard downtown.
Yep.
And now we're going to be further away.
You're a skateboarder? We're going to revisit that, people. We're going to revisit.
I was never very good.
It doesn't matter. It's a state of mind, I think, actually.
It is. It's a state of mind. And so, like, I was initially not super stoked on moving to Croywood. But once I got there, it was amazing, because there's so many kids in the neighborhood, right? And all those kids went to Oakland and different elementary schools, so I didn't know them. So I got to know making a lot of new friends, and it was pretty fun.
You opened your horizons there, yeah. Okay. And so then Lily Lake, that's where you were when you graduated?
Yes.
Okay. Kind of?
Graduated.
Kind of graduated?
Yes.
Wait, there seems to be more of a story with that. Say what now?
I didn't actually graduate from Stillwater Area High School.
You didn't?
No. Like,
this
if
is
you'll
brand
notice,
new
like,
information.
It's all, I attended Stillwater Area High School. is usually where it goes.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
I was a terrible student. I was great at Stonebridge. And then when we got to junior high, which it used to be called up until recently, it was such a reversal. In Stonebridge, we had, kind of these hippy-dippy teachers coming out of the 60s and 70s. Yep. It was colonies, not grades.
Right.
You never had to ask permission to go to the bathroom or to go get a snack out of your bin.
Yeah.
Like, it was
freedom, right?
It was
a little bit
lot
more
of freedom, and and that worked for me. I did pretty well, and I still have my old grades from Stonebridge, right? The little pluses and minuses and S pluses and U's.
Did you get some S pluses?
I did a lot of S pluses.
That a boy.
Yeah,
good job.
And I absolutely loved Stonebridge. And then when we went to junior high, like the first day, I'll never forget, like we're sitting and there's a lot of people in Stillwater that will remember this, but it's like we're in the lunchroom and there's the assistant principal or the vice principal. His name was Steve Studer. And he was this big, scary guy. Like every kid was afraid of this guy. And he's like standing on a lunchroom table and he starts screaming about drugs. He's like, no drugs, no drugs. And I'm just like this, 12-year-old kid. I'm like, drugs? I got to worry about drugs?
Oh, wait, what?
Like, where are we right now?
Wow. Was he like the say no to drugs guy?
He was just like the big, scary enforcer guy.
Okay.
Right? And so I did not do well in middle school. That was, that's a terrible time for every human.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yep.
But my grades just went boom. And then it didn't really change much by the time I got to high school. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like it was my senior year and I was so far behind with credits. They're like, you're going to have to do summer school, like plus summer school.
Yeah.
And I went to the Barnes and Noble in Woodbury and I got the GED book.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like every state that lists the requirements of what you have to do to even take the GED. And I'm like, in Minnesota, you have to be 19 or do a bunch of prep classes. And I'm like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, no. I mean, so, and it was never a question of like, I understood the material. Like I would always get really good, sometimes the highest score in the grade on exams. I just didn't like going to school.
Gotcha.
Right. So I was getting, failed or dropped from classes for attendance, not because of the content of my work. Yeah. Right. So, in hindsight, it was stupid. I guess I have to do things the hard way, right?
Yeah.
But I looked, and in Iowa, you can just take the GED when you're 16. And so I didn't tell my parents. They were gone. They were out of town. And I drove down with a friend of mine to Mason City, Iowa.
I love this so much.
and took my GED. And
at 16?
No, I was 17.
Okay.
And that's how I graduated. And apparently the top two scorers, like in the whole state, get a scholarship to Iowa State. And so they offered me a scholarship.
Ted Kozlowski. Like, I never knew this.
My parents were not super thrilled with me, but I'm like, look, I got a scholarship already. And,
right.
I'm like, Iowa, no, pass. Hard pass on Iowa.
But listen, for people that are watching, you are like one of the sharpest guys I know, and you're a quick thinker, and you go way beyond. When I ask you a small thing, I learn big things, and you've always had that big brain. School probably bored you a little bit.
It was, and it wasn't. I had some wonderful teachers. I think the type of instruction that would have been good for me, I should have gone to post-secondary, right? But because of kind of my middle school shenanigans, I kind of got tracked as being just like kind of a bad kid. Like I wasn't a fighter or stealer or anything like that. I mean, I was kind of a smart ass, and and I just didn't like to go to school. Like, I skipped a lot of school. It was kind of my big thing, and so they kind of tracked me the other way. I think if they just would have looked at the standardized test scores and all that stuff, where I always did really well. Yeah. They probably would have tracked me into that post-secondary thing.
Sure. So you'd be challenged because you're not like the traditional student, but you're super sharp.
That was kind of the only thing in hindsight.
Wow.
And then when I got to college, I did great. Like, college was easy breezy. Like, it was fun. It was wonderful. I went to school in Madison and loved that. That was a great experience because it's based on what you know. It's not about showing up, right? Yeah. It's your exams. It's your relationship with your professors and PAs. And,
different experience.
I loved it. So it was good. It was a little dicey. I had to go to community college for a minute, and then transfer.
Just a hot second.
Yep.
Okay.
But it was good. It was really good for me. I had to work for it.
Yeah.
And,
well, that's good.
And it all worked out.
It worked out quite well, I would say.
It's not like I honestly I don't like sharing that too much because I feel like I'm afraid to give the perception to students that are struggling that it's okay just to screw it off, right? Like, I got really lucky in I mean, seriously lucky in the different things that I did and just luck and just pure blind luck at, picking the right, junior college to prep me for college because I didn't have the study habits that most kids have coming out of college or coming out of high school. I don't want to say it was my plan or anything that I did. I mean, part of it was me, but I think there's a lot of luck in there. So it's not like a path I want others to go down, basically.
Sure, but
right?
the flip side, for people that aren't like exemplary students, it doesn't mean that your future isn't bright. You still have a lot of opportunities, and you might just not. I mean, my husband wasn't a good student in high school. Right. But life and what it presents later, big opportunities.
It is, and that was kind of a hard thing with school with me. I mean, I have teachers, and I remember who they were, but they're like, you're not going to do anything but flip burgers. And I'm like,
shame on you, whoever you are.
On the back of my really nice boat is how I flip burgers.
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about that.
Right. So, it was, and I do try to reach out and talk to kids that are struggling and let them know there's so much emphasis on this is going to set the tone for the rest of your life. That's purely garbage, I think. I mean, you've got opportunity to turn things around. Like, this isn't the end all be all. And I think, there's some kids that I've talked to that think their life's over because they're not succeeding in high school. And so I do try to, help out as much as possible in dispelling that myth. Like, you've got time.
Yeah.
Like,
PSA.
You're 15.
Life goes on. Yes.
You've got plenty of time to turn this around.
Agreed. Good. Okay. So that makes me so happy. That's such a good story, Ted. Thank you for sharing that.
You should have lived it. It was kind of dicey.
I kind of wouldn't mind
showed up to
fly in the wall.
graduation, so when I showed up to graduation to watch all my friends graduate, I'll never forget, I pull up, and one of my friends' moms is like, "Oh my God, Ted, you're so late. Where's your cap and gown?" And I'm like,
oopsies.
I'm not walking today.
But you already had your GED, though, yes?
I did, but it's not like it comes with a cap and gown.
Right. You don't get to walk. You don't do the pomp and circumstance. So then
I did take some photos in one of my friends. I can still lie to my children about my excellent high school career.
Don't ever watch this, children. So then what did you do? Like, what was your side hustle? If you're skipping school, were you skiing? I know you ski.
It was mainly on the river.
Oh, you're on the river.
Yeah, I was on the river all the time.
So you fell in love the day you came, and it doesn't change. It stays with you.
That was it, because our junior high was right up the hill.
Yeah.
And so you could, let's say you could, somehow bribe the kid working in the office. So when the main receptionist leaves to go to the bathroom, my mom called and I had a dentist appointment.
Let's
and I
just
needed to get out, right? So they'd come get me out of school, and then.
Wow.
We had a boat, and I'd ride my bike down to Bayport to get the boat, and then I'd bring it up here and park it at the Andiamo docks, and then I'd dip out of school and
this is so brilliant.
Go kneeboarding and stuff with my friends.
Okay, I kind of like that vibe. I'm not gonna lie. So, river time. You're still spend a lot of time on the river.
Other things that I don't want to mention on TV. I mean,
we'll keep that on the down low.
I was very interested in the river and girls.
Sounds about right. And if you have a boat on the river and you're a guy, not too shabby.
It was kind of a thing.
It was a thing. Okay, so you finish school in Stillwater. You go to college in Madison. Did you know what you wanted to study?
I tried the science route.
Okay.
Right, biology.
Interesting.
And I took I had to take Calc 318, and that's where I'm like,
Lord help me.
nope.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand the words. I mean, they might as well have been speaking Greek or Aramaic or something. I was just like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get through this. I mean, the math requirement is so heavy, but I did take, anatomy and physiology and microbiome and all those fun classes. And so I did get to, play with cultures and do stuff in the lab.
Do the things.
Yeah.
The sciencey
it was really
things.
fun. It freaked me out for buffets and bathrooms and
Oh, Lord.
stuff.
Don't tell me.
Microbiology, every kid, because you deal with what STDs are, every nasty bug you can ever catch is covered in this class.
It makes me itchy just when you talk about it.
It saved me from so many bad decisions. They should teach microbiology in high school.
Right? Okay, good idea.
From some bad decisions to even decisions like the potatoes at a buffet. It's the perfect medium to grow the world's nastiest stuff. I mean, and if the heater's a little off, it's at perfect body temp, right?
Okay.
I mean, that kind of fun stuff. So it was great.
Fair.
I love that.
Got a little science on the front end. That's good. And you learned something about what you should put in your mouth and what you shouldn't. Okay.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. then what happened?
That's a good way to phrase it.
Uh-huh.
And then I love reading. And so, I knew, because I didn't have the study skills to get myself through something like Calc 318 or whatever it was. I had to focus on things I really enjoyed. And so that was philosophy, political science, history. And so I went down that path because it was really just reading, right? And I love reading. I still love reading.
Did you read when you were a young kid too?
Not much. It was really, and it always distressed my mom a little bit because she's a huge reader, and she'd read to me a ton when I was a kid, and very much a house full of books I grew up in. But I had issues with my eyes a little bit in reading. But I did go to Mounds Park Academy for a semester. Okay. And actually, I learned more in that school in a semester. I learned how to read effectively and very fast. Wow. At Mounds Park, and how to write a really good paper. And so that really helped me out in college. And so I focused on those classes because they're fun, right? I mean, European history is amazing, right? Yeah. I mean, modern civilization's amazing.
It kind of puts us to shame, right? When you go to European history, it's...
Right. It's just really fun. And then at the end of it, you more or less, you write 2 papers or have 2 exams. And so the workload in those classes was a lot lighter. You basically read a lot, write 2 papers, take 2 exams.
Shape.
And so, so it made it easier for me to be successful.
Yeah.
And it was fun. Philosophy was great. I had a great philosophy professor and advisor that I absolutely adored. He just passed away a couple years ago, actually. His name was Dr. Kozlowski, and he was amazing in helping me guide my young self through college. Yeah.
So what did that mean? Were you heading towards a degree in philosophy?
I doubled in philosophy and political science.
Okay. That makes so much sense to me right now.
With a BS, too. So I had the science requirement.
Yeah.
So I really wanted the BS for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons.
Right?
I have one, too.
Right?
Yeah, it works.
I needed that. It's you need an extra, 4 math credits, and you go from a BA to a BS. Yep. I'm done. Totally done.
Yep.
And so that was it, but it wasn't that I wanted to work. I did work on some political campaigns. I worked for the RNC. I worked for the Democratic National Committee.
What sort of stuff were you doing?
Fundraising. Basically smiling and dialing, right?
Bless your heart.
Donate money.
That's a hard job.
I thought it was a riot.
Oh, for you.
And the Republican Party paid better.
Oh, okay. Hourly, you mean, or were you?
No, you got bonuses. Oh, right. So the more donations you'd get bonused on it. It was 10%.
Are you fairly charming on the phone? Would you work it?
I did pretty good.
Yes.
I did pretty good.
Okay, good. So you did that, and then what was your first official job out of college?
My first job was at Trump's in Stillwater. Which life lessons.
First job ever?
First job ever.
How old were you?
Here's the greatest thing. So Scotty thought I was 18, and I was 15.
Okay.
And I was hanging out skateboarding and hanging out with all my hooligan friends downtown, and Scotty is just get a job. What are you idiot kids doing? Don't you have work to do? He kind of comes by and gives us one of those, and I'm like, you hiring? And he's like, fine, come on. And so he made me a bartender. And I was 15.
Wait, what?
It was awesome sauce. Like, this was the greatest job I've ever had.
It's totally legal too,
And
so that's fine.
So I'm starting as a bar back, but I'm working with this old school bartender, and I wish I could remember his name. I just met him again at Scotty's funeral. But amazing bartender, right? And he's teaching me how to make drinks, Long Island iced tea, vodka, triple sec, rum, sweet and sour, and a Coke, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, all this fun stuff. And then someone came in and they're like, you can't have 15-year-old bartend here.
Whoopsies.
And so, and Scotty's like, what, you're 15?
Wait, what now?
And I look like I was 12. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, it wasn't like I lied or anything. I'm like, I don't know how that happened. But that lasted about 2 weeks, and it was awesome. But then he made me a bar back and a host.
Fun is the name of the game at the Lumberjack. Throw some axes, enjoy Union Alley, sit back, relax, take in the excellent food and drinks. The next time you are out and about in beautiful downtown Stillwater, visit Sarah and the great staff for a fun night out. Visit the Lumberjack off Commercial Street in downtown Stillwater today for a glass full of fun.
Cheers.
So rewind just a little bit. Set up. What was Trump's? What was it like?
It was a wonderful place. Scotty Zarin was the owner. John Daly was the manager. Two iconic Stillwater legends.
Completely iconic. Yep.
Right, that I got to learn from at a very young, impressionable age, for better or for worse. It was amazing. Like, they had a band on Sunday nights called Shalita that would pack the place with recent African immigrants. From the city. So it was people would come downtown and they're like, what is going on? I mean, they had the African garb and the hats.
Yes.
And they spent money like crazy. Like, it was just Heineken, Beck's, and Johnny Walker was all they would drink, right? And so, I mean, they had a great vibe, great music. The food
any
was
favorite
phenomenal.
songs?
It was Shalita. Like, they were not exactly my jam. I mean, I appreciate it, but after every Sunday for a year, you know, it gets a little tired when you work there. But
I just thought you might sing us a little, some. No, okay, not today. All right.
And so, yes, Trump's was great. It was awesome. So I became like a bar back and a host, and so I got to work with all the servers and work behind the bar, make sure everything was stocked.
You feel me. Right. All of this service industry that lines the streets of Stillwater, you get it.
Oh, yeah.
You
I mean, I've spent a lot of time
it.
washing glasses and cutting limes and lemons and getting yelled at for not doing it the right way.
Of
right?
course.
So it was awesome. It was really the first customer-facing job I ever had, and it was a tremendous amount of fun. I loved working there.
I love that. See, I keep liking you more and more. All right, so we're going to jump. We jumped back, jump forward.
So yeah, you asked my real job.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, definitely Trump's was because I really think serving jobs form who you are. And
everybody should do that. Everybody should do
it. Yep.
It was amazing. And then after college, I went out to Silicon Valley, which is what everybody does.
Which is what everybody who is super smart does.
Well, I guess everybody, this was, 2000, 99, 2000. And so it was like the whole Y2K thing.
Yeah.
And so I got recruited through a friend of a friend of a friend who brought me out to Silicon Valley and got an apartment in San Francisco downtown and worked for a company. It was called Smart DB. And I basically ran inside sales for the organization. So kind of a fallback on my, college career of smiling and dialing, raising money for Democrats and Republicans. Same kind of thing. It was all about selling enterprise software to move data from mainframes into relational databases like Oracle and JD Edwards and things like that. And so it was very much a tech-heavy environment.
Okay.
It was very intimidating for me because everybody that was sitting around me were Stanford, MIT grads, and Harvard grads and stuff. And so it kind of forced me to have to step up my game, right? Like I felt a little intimidated, honestly, when I first got out there because there's a lot of smart people that I was working with.
Yeah. You're one of them, but you didn't feel at the moment like you were.
Yeah, when I first got out there, I mean, I didn't know what the hell it was. They threw me into the deep end of the pool. A very sweet CEO had a lot of faith in me. And she was a mentor of mine for many, many years. And she just had faith. She knew me and thought I was going to do well, and I did. I kicked butt in Silicon Valley. It was fun, but we did I had 6 startups in the 8 years I was out there. So it was like playing Frogger. I mean, it was always making sure every company was getting acquired so fast for so much money.
Yeah.
And sometimes they take you and you wouldn't like it, or sometimes they didn't need the staff. They were just buying you for the tech. And so, excuse me, you always kind of had to have one foot out of the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You're kind of always on a job hunt because, I was spending, pretty much every dollar I made having fun, buying Porsches and champagne and doing all the stupid things young 20-year-olds do.
As one should.
And so I didn't have a whole lot of savings.
Wait, like just buying Porsches? Just buying Porsches.
Dumb stuff. Right?
No big deal. Wait, so Y2K, this is when we all thought the world was going to end, right? Some people watching may not have been alive. We were.
Right.
Is that the year you graduated from college in 2000?
Yeah, so I started working before I graduated. I'd actually fly out there. I spent a summer out there, and then every vacation, and I would take some time off of school. Like, I had a job before I graduated.
Wow.
And so that was in 99, and then I graduated in May of 2000.
Then was it scary on that day when the calendar
I was on a
2000?
boat in the Bahamas.
You were not
I was
afraid?
chilling on Y2K. Like,
no,
we were
was there
fine.
fear in Silicon Valley? Like,
oh, yeah, tremendous
Yeah.
fear. And I think, honestly, in hindsight, I think the people that knew the tech knew that the world wasn't going to end.
Yeah.
But that fear definitely created a lot of sales.
Oh.
Like, our company grew. That's how I met Google. Was my first job. We were doing lead gen, and we shared an office with Google.
Wow.
When they were like a 30-person company. And so just to be neighborly, we gave them $10,000 to help us generate leads, and we generated an insane amount of leads for our software.
Wow.
And that's how I got started with Google. Way back in the day.
That was my next question, right? Like, you're kind of famous for your early roots, and I'd just love to see how did that unfold?
I mean, that was it. It was really my job was to generate leads for our sales department. And if you want to learn about technology in Silicon Valley and you're a 20-something that doesn't know anything about software or development, you smoke cigarettes in the back parking lot with all the Indian developers. Is how you figure stuff out. And get to know them and talk to them.
Yeah.
And the developers from Google were sharing a building with us, and they're in the same parking lot.
And there's literally 30 people in Google at this
40
point.
people at this point.
It's just like a tiny
99.
baby.
Yeah, and it's
Jeez.
I'm like, who needs a search engine? Like, we already have Excite, and Netscape, AOL, like
AOL.
So anyway, so that was, and basically the whole idea of giving Google money, so when someone's looking for enterprise application integration, they click on a link, they hit a page to download software, request a demo or something.
Yeah.
And our sales overnight just like exploded.
Wow.
with that. So we went from, a 30-person company to 300 overnight. We were one of the fastest growing companies in Silicon Valley.
Wow.
So I got to watch that whole thing unfold, and it was really fun. And then I took that with me. I was always a sales guy. Like, that was, the Porsche and the nice suit and the pocket square and, the Rolex, all that stuff, right? Like, that was my thing, right? Like, I wanted to be that guy because I kind of
that was your shtick.
I kind of grew up broke, right? And I had a chip on my shoulder. So, that was kind of my goal, right? And so I took that with me everywhere I went, the Google stuff.
Yeah.
And basically at some point when my wife and I moved back from Argentina, I got a job, and they're like, this is marketing. You're marketing. And I'm like, I'm not in marketing. Like, I'm a sales guy. Like, check the car and the watch and like whatever, right? And
Look at
they're
my
like,
stuff.
no, they're like, this is marketing, right? You're doing marketing now. And it was actually a great change. And that's what kind of got me to where we're at with starting our own business and doing all the training and everything else.
And now you teach people.
Now I spread the gospel of Google.
Spreading the gospel.
Right.
You're good. And sales makes sense because you're charming and you're outgoing. And I think people immediately trust you. I think that's probably how you ended up being the mayor. But I really, how did that come about? Like, did someone...
The mayor thing?
Uh-huh.
I mean, well, the last one went to prison, right? So we kind of needed a new one.
So there was that. Do we talk about that? Okay. Did someone nudge you? Or how did that... I mean, how many years? 10?
Yeah, I've been on council for almost 10 years, yeah.
That's a big commitment.
It's been, I can't believe it's been that long. I mean, I was 34 when I ran for city council.
Just a baby.
Crazy. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, but yeah, I had no time to think about being on council. Like, a friend called and said, you should run for city council. And I said, let me think about it. He's like, you don't have time. Like, the filing deadline ends in like an hour and a half. And I'm like, okay. So I asked my parents, I'm like, what do you think? And at the time I had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh, boy.
And our company was a year old.
Oh,
and
wow.
we weren't making any money at that point.
As one does in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and my parents were like, you're nuts. And I asked Rachel, and she was like, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, I was already on a board, or maybe even I had 2 board positions already as a volunteer. And so after everybody said no, of course, check my high school career, I go the opposite direction.
Absolutely.
And,
it's like, I dare you, isn't
right?
it? Kind of when someone says, no,
totally
don't do
is,
it. Yeah.
Right? No,
yeah.
when I would leave the house in high school, my parents would say, drive reckless and aim for the ditch. Because they knew I would I would do the opposite, right? Mm-hmm. So I go down and I put my $5 in and register. And
it was $5?
I think it was $5, right? And
so you had to pay to be, okay.
I still have to pay.
Okay, yes you do.
This job costs me money.
Yes, it does. I think we learned about that a little bit.
But yeah, and that was it. I'm like, I'll let, if people want to vote for me, I was pretty involved in the community at the time. I'm like, great. And then it was, we had a 3-way race for my council seat in a primary, which I barely won the second position in the primary. And that's when I just started realizing the importance of the role and how it's an opportunity to change the city I love and to help the city I love. And then I kind of clicked in the back of my mind. Like after the primary, I'm like, I need to talk to everybody. I need to do this. Like we've got so much opportunity in this town. We've got so many cool people in this town. Like then it took the primary for me to realize that I really wanted it.
Yeah.
Right. And that was it. And then I served as a council member for Ward 1 for 2 years, and then we needed a mayor. And so kind of had to step up and do that one.
Did you feel it brewing in you? Was it like, I think I could do that?
It was fun. I mean, I like learning stuff, and there were a couple of things where it's like I was able to help people right out of the gates, right? And I don't want to share who they are or necessarily even what it was about, but I realized really quickly that you can't help people, like local politics, and it was great. Like there's a gentleman that was really worried about water meters, and we figured out a solution that made him happy, the water board happy, and then he was like forever grateful. He still is. Like he's like, can you come have chili at my house? Like all this stuff. And that kind of stuff just made me feel good. I'm like, this isn't that hard. Like you just need to listen to people and be approachable.
Yeah.
And so I liked the job, but I really didn't have political aspirations. I mean, I worked for Gavin Newsom in California on his campaign for mayor. I also worked for his opponent, Matt Gonzalez, the first go round. I worked for Tammy Baldwin when she ran for Congress and stuff. So I've been around politics, and my family's pretty political on both sides, very strongly political on both sides. But it was never like my thing. I prefer to work behind the scenes, if anything else. And so it was kind of a new thing. I honestly never thought I would do this.
Wow.
Ever. It wasn't like a life goal or any of those things to do it.
To be, but here you are. And really, anyone who I talk to on the street, when I say, hey, what do you think? I don't go around asking what people think of you. But if I bring your name up, they're like, oh, I love that guy. I know he'll go to bat for you. And everybody has a little phrase, and it's pretty darn positive, and it's very like someone's got your back.
Right.
And that's, I feel that way. I think a lot of people feel that way. But I'm curious on your side. 2 burning questions. What was the hardest thing that you've had to manage being the mayor? Ugh. And then what was the craziest thing? Crazy, I'm even more excited about, but...
there's been a lot. I got to say, this job can be tough. I'm really fortunate that we've been, somewhat successful in our personal or business careers, and we have flexibility with time. I really don't know. What kind of scares me about, the next mayor is you've got to find somebody that has the time to do this. And the energy too, right? And it's a lot of time. It can be as much time as you can put into it, right? There's never-ending stuff to do, and you really don't get paid for it, right? It's a volunteer gig, so the next mayor's got to love the city intensely, and has to have the financial freedom to dedicate 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week sometimes. On the city of Stillwater, for the good of the city of Stillwater. And so, is the challenging, the most challenging really has been the pandemic. I mean, that, this job on a good week is 5-6 hours of work. On a bad week, pre-COVID, it was maybe 15 or 20. That changed to 40 hours a week, right? Where I'm on a conference call with the CEO of Lakeview Hospital and the governor every day for 3 hours talking about what's going on with our parks. And then just, I closed Teddy Bear Park and I've got 30 people yelling at me for closing Teddy Bear Park. I got 30 people thanking me and saying, why don't you close everything, right?
Yeah.
It was.
You're in the middle of the great divide.
It was a ton, and it's like Stillwater doesn't have a medical department. I don't have medical advisors, right? And my limited background in microbiology allows me to read and comprehend some of the stuff they put out, but that was tough, and just trying to keep everybody informed and keep people positive as they can be.
Yep.
I think that was hard. It was a lot of energy. Like I'd be exhausted at the end of a day, and I'm like, why am I so tired? Right? And Rachel would be like, because you've been on the phone for 8 hours.
Which is so exhausting.
Right? No, and you've got people like, like the adult children of aging parents, like in New York, calling me going, I'm worried about my grandmother and grandfather or my mom and dad that live in Stillwater. Yeah. Right? They've got admitted to the hospital. I haven't heard from them, and they don't answer their cell phones. Can someone find out what's going on? Right? And they're crying. I mean, I had loads of calls like that. Like every day there was some tragedy or something, and it does take it takes a lot out of you,
toll.
Right? So it's like I'm done at the end of the day. I'm like, I didn't do anything. Why am I so tired?
But you're exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depleted.
So that was tough. I mean, that was really tough, and we're still not done. But I think, fortunately, we've got really cool people in this town. I mean, we're always going to have the loud voices on social, but by and large, when you spend time in town and walk around and talk to people are cool. They're chill. They're it's not what you see on social. And so, I think thank God we are where we are during these times.
Yep.
Like I can't imagine living in Portland or San Francisco or New York. I'm so happy to be here right now, or even Minneapolis, frankly. Like I'm glad we're here because we have cooler heads and really good people in this town. Yeah,
really big hearts, I feel like.
Now, probably the craziest story is Lumberjack Days.
Oh, yeah, I want to hear it.
Getting that one back.
All the dirty details. That was a big task, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking about, but prior to coming down here, like thinking about kind of the change that Stillwater's gone through and for the good. And what a big part Sean Smalley was, like in Smalley's and getting that restaurant and the national attention on the restaurant scene, and Tim McKee, and kind of all these people like yourself and Brad and the Liftbridge folks and Corey Bittner and Joey Ellens and Tim and Meg at the Daily Grind, like all these like people that are around our age that are like stepping up, and really feeling empowered to take ownership of our city. But that's what kind of like got me thinking about Smalley, because that was Lumberjack Days. We wanted to bring that back. Yeah. And I was just on council at the time, and I was on a committee of there were 2 council members, it was me and Doug Menekheim, and then staff that was supposed to interview these candidates that were stepping up to run Lumberjack Days. And everybody knew my preference was to have the locals do it. I wanted Brad Glenn and Smalley, and Smalley was instrumental in all of that. And they looked at, some counselors looked at Smalley, and some of our department heads were like, he's just like some anarchist, metalhead, like there's no way. And I'm like, just trust me, like it's him and Brad and a bunch of other awesome people. And so they met to pick the 3 finalists while I was on vacation in San Diego.
Oh, they're like, let's do this without him.
Yeah, kind of thing. Okay. And so Mary Devine calls me as I'm shopping with my kids, right? And I just lose my mind, right? I'm like, because they didn't even make the top 3. I'm like, no.
Crushing
Like,
blow.
it was like the people that run the Renaissance Festival, some outfit out of Chicago, and then there was some dude from, up on the Iron Range, like a one-man show. I'm like, there's no. Like, this isn't our town for hire. Yeah. Like, this has always been a local event. Yes. It has to stay a local event. And so I just went nuts, and I started a Facebook page, Keep Lumberjack Days Local. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. I spent about $5,000 promoting it.
I love
Got
this
everybody
guy.
in town tuned up, right? Yep. And I didn't say it was me. Like, there's probably a couple people on council that up until now don't know it was me that did it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, email, council member Ted Kozlowski, email council member so-and-so, email me. Like, right? Bring all this back. And
You're so sneaky. I
was
love it.
So, like, I was just infuriated by that. And I hadn't been on council long enough to, I felt like I was kind of putting the hammer down a little bit, maybe over my skis, but it just, I felt so strongly about it.
Yes.
That I'm like, this has to be a local thing.
Yes.
And lo and behold, like the community stepped up and like just flooded with emails, flooded with all of this stuff. And so they brought him back as the fourth of the top 3 finalists, right? And then with all the continued community pressure that I helped stir up, and I think rightly so, then they voted to give it to the locals.
Ted, so this is what you
do. That was kind of the craziest.
That's
like,
such a good example.
It's still something I'm so proud of.
Yes.
Like, because it just, that thing, like I was talking to Brad and talking to Smalley during that whole thing. I'm like, this is just crazy. Like, it has to be you guys. Like, you have to be the ones to do this. And Paul Krieger and like the whole crew. I'm like, this is, you guys are brilliant. This is going to be perfect. And I understood the other council members' doubts, right? I mean, we had this history of kind of not a good history of lumberjack days of years past, right?
Yeah.
So I get why they were hesitant to give it to a bunch of young locals.
Sure.
It makes sense, but it had to be ours. Like, we can't sub this festival out.
Yeah.
Like, it's our community celebration.
Yes.
And what's so cool is Doug Menekheim was dead set against it. And I love this man.
Yeah.
He's not on council anymore, but he's still in town. And being the leader that he is and the genuine awesome human that he is, after the first year, he basically publicly stated, like, I was wrong.
Aww.
You guys are awesome. And then he bought us all Lumberjack Day shirts with our names on them. Like, and he was like, you guys did an amazing job. Like, he owned it, and he was the one with the biggest doubts, but I adore that man. He was such a great guy.
Doug's story, we're redoing the stairs, and we're like shoveling on, the pitch of the Stillwater stairs, and covered in sweat and dirt, and here comes Doug. He's like, do you need a hand? And I was like, oh no, this is like dangerous. And he's like, give me the shovel. And he was with us for like 3 hours just in the dirt. And I instantly fell in love with him.
Yeah, he's such a good guy.
But just a good guy.
He's
and even when he did there, I love it. Okay, so I want to close it up with you telling the people of Stillwater, like, if you have like one piece of advice for life, whether it's how you live or what you do, what would you say?
I mean, for what's worked well for me is to kind of focus on the simple things, right? Like, we need to make money, we need to have fun, we need to help our community, right? Whatever you can do to try and achieve those 3. Right? It's kind of, for me, it's like the trifecta, right? Like, if I can do those 3 things, right, then it's good. There's a lot of people that do a lot of good that don't make any money, that might have fun, right? Like, I did the Silicon Valley thing and made a boatload of cash, and that was fun for a minute, but it kind of wears off, right? Like, it was a very selfish kind of existence, right? And it's relatively easy if that's your main goal, just to make money. But like, actually having fun and helping the planet or helping your community, that's a little bit harder, right? To find those positions. And so I try to keep it simple, and then you can't be afraid to like pivot and adjust, right? You got to be a little fearless and take some risks. Like, I mean, we moved back here on a whim. I didn't think I was going to be back in Stillwater. It was a last minute kind of move, and obviously it worked out great. Like, I couldn't be happier to be here. So, if you find yourself running into walls, sometimes you just have to like pivot and move the other direction. Like, I don't think there's never a time that's too late to make a life adjustment. Right? Like, don't be afraid to quit your job and try something new. Right?
Yeah. It's never wrong to do the right thing.
Right. Yeah. Just try different stuff. Right. I mean, I hate the idea of people, and I have a lot of people that I'm close to that I love that, just they don't really like their job that much, and they spend so much time away from their friends and family doing it. And it's like, God, I could never do that. That sounds terrible. Yeah. Right? Like, just switch it up. Don't be afraid.
I agree. Ted, you live your life that way. It's the best advice to give. I think you lead our town that way. I have a lot of gratitude for that, and I'm so happy you're our first interview of Voices of the Valley. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, and I hope this was interesting.
I thought it was super interesting.
Good. Great.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you at the next episode.